Let's start with something uncomfortable. Most men don't lose women because they're bad people. They lose women because they try to keep them. And that sounds insane until you understand how human desire actually works. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this almost 500 years ago, and he wasn't talking about dating. He was talking about power, control, and human nature. But here's the part no one likes to admit. Attraction follows the same rules as power, and power follows scarcity. The moment something becomes guaranteed, it becomes invisible. The moment something feels secure, it stops being desired. And if that sentence already annoys you, good. That means you're listening. Machiavelli's dirty little observation. Machiavelli wrote something that should probably come with a warning label. Men are quicker to forget the death of a father than the loss of a patrimony. In modern language, people get over emotional loss faster than loss of advantage. He wasn't saying, people don't feel. He was saying, people are wired to value what benefits them, what can be lost, and what isn't guaranteed. Now, apply that to attraction. Attraction isn't built on comfort. It's built on risk. Desire doesn't come from safety. It comes from uncertainty. And that's the first pill most men choke on. When a man meets a woman he really likes, something primitive kicks in. He thinks, how do I keep her? How do I prove I'm different? How do I make her feel secure? So he texts faster, explains himself more, reassures her constantly, makes himself available at all times, smooths out every emotional edge. In other words, he removes all tension. And tension is the engine of attraction. This is where men unknowingly commit relational suicide. They confuse bonding with desire. Bonding feels good. Desire feels dangerous. And you can't build fire in a padded room. Scarcity isn't a trick. It's a law towards where people mess this up. Scarcity is not. Playing games, ignoring texts on purpose, acting aloof like a bored movie villain, that's fake scarcity. And people smell it immediately. Real scarcity comes from non-attachment. Machiavelli would say, power comes not from being loved, but from not needing to be loved. In attraction, the same rule applies. The person who is less invested controls the emotional temperature of the relationship, not because they're cruel, but because they're free. And freedom is intoxicating. White kills desire. Think about this. Have you ever desperately wanted something, and the moment you got it, your interest dropped? That's not because you're broken. That's because your nervous system is designed to chase what can escape. Desire is a response to potential loss. When there is nothing to lose, there is nothing to feel. This is why the chase feels better than the capture. New relationships feel electric. Long-term attraction requires tension. And it's why men who overinvest early almost always lose leverage. The availability trap. Let me give you a painfully common example. A man meets a woman. She's interested. The energy is good. There's flirtation. Then he decides, I don't want to mess this up. So he becomes ultra-consistent, responds instantly, cancels plans with friends for her, starts planning a future out loud. What he thinks he's communicating, I'm stable, I'm serious, I'm safe. What she feels, there's no mystery here, no risk, no edge. And attraction quietly suffocates, not because she's evil, not because she's broken, but because desire feeds on contrast, not constancy. Machiavelli understood something. Modern dating advice refuses to say plainly. People value what they fear, losing more than what they enjoy possessing. That's why nations rebel against rulers who give them everything. That's why employees disrespect bosses who never enforce boundaries. That's why attraction fades when availability becomes unlimited Scarcity creates value because it introduces stakes, and attraction without stakes is just politeness. Dark truth. Neediness is a power transfer. Here's the brutal part. The moment a man needs a woman to feel complete, grounded, or validated, he hands her emotional power. And power imbalance kills desire. You cannot desire what you feel responsible for. You cannot crave what depends on you. That's why overly agreeable men lose sexual polarity. Men who pedestalize women get friend-zoned. Men who just want her to be happy often end up alone. Desire requires separation. Two complete entities, not one person orbiting another. The illusion of security. Men often think, if I remove all uncertainty, she'll feel safe and stay. But attraction doesn't work like loyalty. You don't earn desire through effort. You maintain it through tension. Safety is what keeps someone around. Desire is what pulls them closer. And the mistake is thinking you can replace one with the other. You can't. Why women respond to scarcity, and men do too. This isn't a women are like this issue. Men do the same thing. Think about the girl who didn't text back, the one who had a life and didn't rearrange it for you, the one you couldn't quite figure out she wasn't doing anything special, she just wasn't chasing. And that absence of pursuit created gravity. Scarcity doesn't create attraction, it reveals it. The difference between interest and desire. Interest says, I like you. Desire says, I don't know where I stand, and that bothers me. Desire is restless. Interest is calm. Most men try to turn desire into interest as fast as possible. They stabilize it, label it, lock it down, and then wonder why the spark dies. Machiavelli would laugh at modern dating advice. Most modern advice tells men to communicate more, be more emotionally available, reassure constantly. None of that is wrong. It's just dangerous when done too early. Machiavelli warned against generosity without limits. He said, give too much, and it's expected. Give too little, and it's resented. The same applies to attention. Attention without scarcity becomes noise. The first principle of attraction. Here it is, clean and uncomfortable. Desire is born where something can be lost. No loss, no desire, no uncertainty, no pull, no separation, no polarity. This doesn't mean manipulation. It means self-possession. And most men have been trained out of that. What this series is really about. This isn't about tricks. It's not about getting women. It's about understanding. Why trying harder often fails. Why letting go creates pull. Why strength is quieter than effort. Machiavelli wasn't teaching cruelty. He was teaching clarity. And clarity is attractive. If this is already making you rethink how attraction actually works, do me a favor. Subscribe and stay with this series. Not because you need more advice, but because most of what you've been taught about desire is backwards, and we're only just getting to the dangerous part. Let's get brutally specific now, because attraction doesn't usually die in some dramatic explosion. It dies quietly. Through 1,000 tiny decisions, men think are doing the right thing. And the tragedy is this. Most men don't lose attraction. They hand it away. The overinvestment fallacy. Here's the belief that ruins everything. If I give more, she'll value me more. This sounds logical. It's also completely false in the emotional realm. Overinvestment doesn't increase attraction. It collapses polarity. When one person gives disproportionately more effort, more availability, more emotional labor, they stop being a romantic equal and become an emotional utility. Useful, reliable, unsexy. Why effort feels like love. Men are taught to love through effort. You work, you provide, you prove, you sacrifice. So when a man likes a woman, he defaults to doing. The problem? Desire isn't inspired by effort. It's inspired by presence. Effort says, I'm trying to earn something. Presence says, I already have value. One chases, the other attracts. Real example. The slow fade. Let me paint a familiar picture. A guy meets a woman. They click. Chemistry is there. Then slowly, he starts texting good morning every day. He asks if everything's okay when she replies slower. He checks in constantly. He offers help she didn't ask for. From his perspective, I'm being thoughtful. From her nervous system, I'm being monitored. Attraction doesn't vanish instantly. It leaks out. One of the most destructive habits men develop is reassurance addiction. They ask, are we okay? Do you still like me? Did I do something wrong? Every question seems innocent. Together, they communicate one thing. I don't feel stable unless you tell me I am. That's not intimacy. That's emotional outsourcing. Here's the dark truth. When you seek reassurance, you are handing responsibility for your emotional state to someone else, asking them to regulate you, making them your anchor. And attraction cannot survive responsibility. You can care for someone, you can love someone, but you cannot desire someone you have to hold together. Machiavelli warned rulers against appearing weak, not because weakness is immoral, but because it invites disrespect. In relationships, emotional weakness does the same thing, not vulnerability, instability. There's a difference. Vulnerability says, I feel deeply, and I can hold it. Instability says, I feel deeply, and I need you to fix it. Only one creates attraction. This is where it gets really ugly. Men start deleting parts of themselves. They stop disagreeing, hide preferences, laugh at jokes they don't find funny, avoid conflict at all costs. They become smooth, and smooth is dead. Attraction is built from difference, masculine and feminine, assertive and receptive, grounded and expressive. When a man erases his edge to avoid tension, he kills polarity. No polarity, no spark. You don't want harmony at the expense of aliveness. The so-called nice guy isn't unattractive because he's kind. He's unattractive because he's predictable. He's permission-seeking. He's afraid to risk disapproval. Kindness without backbone reads as compliance. And compliance isn't sexy. Why predictability feels safe. And dead. Predictability is great for systems, terrible for desire. When someone knows, you'll always reply, you'll always agree, you'll always be there. There's no emotional movement. Attraction needs motion. Still water doesn't pull, it stagnates. Let's say this clearly. Being available is not the same as being valuable. Unlimited availability communicates, I have nothing better going on. Scarcity communicates, I choose you, I don't cling to you. Choice is attractive. Need is repellent. Why men panic when they feel distance? The moment a woman pulls back even slightly, many men spiral. They text more, explain themselves, try to fix the vibe. This does the opposite of what they want. Distance creates tension. Tension creates desire. Chasing collapses both. Here's the irony. The harder a man tries to hold on to a woman, the faster she feels the need to escape. Not because she's cruel, but because instinctively she's responding to pressure. Desire wants space to breathe. Men overinvest because they want control. Control over outcomes, Baldings. Loss. But attraction doesn't submit to control. It responds to confidence in uncertainty. The man who can tolerate not knowing becomes magnetic. What actually keeps attraction alive? Of course, not constant reassurance, not over-communication, but self-containment, emotional steadiness. A life that doesn't collapse without her. You don't keep attraction by gripping it. You keep it by not needing to. This is the shift most men resist. Stop asking, how do I keep her? Start asking, am I grounded enough that I don't disappear if she leaves? That question changes everything. If any part of this hit a little too close to home, comment one word that describes the mistake you've made most often. Overinvesting, reassurance, people-pleasing, chasing, whatever it is. Not for shame, for awareness. Because once you can name the pattern, it stops owning you. Attraction rarely dies all at once. It erodes. Not through betrayal, not through cruelty, but through predictability, emotional leakage, and misplaced honesty. Most men imagine attraction as something fragile they must protect. So they hover. They explain. They clarify. They overcorrect. And without realizing it, they drain the very thing they're trying to preserve. Because attraction doesn't need protection. It needs containment. The fatal misunderstanding. Emotional transparency versus emotional leadership. Modern advice worships transparency. Just communicate. Just express your feelings. Just let her know where you stand. Sounds healthy. Feels mature. Kills desire. Because there's a difference no one explains. Emotional transparency is dumping your internal weather on someone. Emotional leadership is holding your internal weather without making it their problem. Most men practice the first while thinking they're doing the second. They narrate their anxiety. They confess uncertainty in real time. They verbalize every emotional fluctuation. What they call honesty, her nervous system experiences as instability. Attraction doesn't respond to how much you feel. It responds to how well you hold what you feel. Why opening up? Too early backfires, then are told women want vulnerability. True, but vulnerability without structure feels unsafe. Imagine getting on a plane where the pilot keeps updating you mid-flight. Feeling a bit nervous. Not totally sure about this turbulence. Hope we're good. He's being honest. You still want to get off the plane. Early attraction works the same way. When a man admits how afraid he is of losing her, talks about past heartbreak, unprocessed, shares insecurity before stability is established, he thinks he's deepening connection. What he's actually doing is asking her nervous system to co-regulate his. And desire cannot grow where responsibility is introduced too early. Emotional gravity versus emotional leakage. Strong men have emotional gravity. Weak men have emotional leakage. Gravity pulls things toward it without effort. Leakage drains energy everywhere. Men with gravity feel deeply but move deliberately. Don't rush to explain themselves. Don't chase clarity when tension exists. Men with leakage text to regulate anxiety. Talk to reduce discomfort. Share to feel. Relieved relief is selfish when it costs polarity. If every emotion you feel immediately becomes something she has to hear about, respond to, or manage, attraction bleeds out. Not because emotions are bad, but because unmanaged emotions create pressure. Men think more communication equals more connection, but frequency is not intimacy. When you text constantly, check in repeatedly, ask for updates on mood, schedule, feelings, you're not bonding, you're monitoring. Her nervous system doesn't interpret it as care, it interprets it as vigilance, and vigilance kills mystery. Attraction requires the feeling that the other person has a full internal world you don't completely control. When everything is shared, nothing is felt. Masculinity in attraction isn't dominance, it's direction. Direction means you're emotionally steady even when she's not. You don't collapse during uncertainty. You don't rush to fix discomfort. Men lose attraction when they abandon direction for approval. They ask, Are we okay? Did I upset you? What can I do better? Each question shifts the frame. Now she's evaluating you. Now she's regulating you. Now she's leading emotionally. And polarity flips. Men love hearing, "You're so easy to be with." They shouldn't. Easy often means no friction, no challenge, no emotional resistance. Pleasant. Safe. Forgettable. Attraction doesn't come from ease. It comes from aliveness. A man who never disrupts emotional equilibrium doesn't create desire. He maintains comfort. Comfort is where attraction goes to rest, then die. Men often leak commitment energy before commitment exists. They talk about the future early act. Loyal before loyalty is earned. Structure their lives around a woman too soon. They think they're demonstrating seriousness. What they're actually doing is eliminating uncertainty. And uncertainty is where desire lives. When a woman feels chosen before she's had the chance to choose, attraction short-circuits. Choice feels powerful. Being chosen prematurely feels smothering. Consistency is valuable. But timing matters. Early attraction needs rhythm, not routine. Predictable communication schedules. Predictable availability. Predictable emotional responses. These feel stable and dead. Men confuse reliability with attraction. Reliability keeps relationships running. Attraction starts them. You don't lead with maintenance energy. You lead with presence. Being emotionally accessible means you can be reached. Being emotionally over-accessible means you're always open, always available, always responding. That signals, I have no internal boundaries. Boundaries are attractive, not walls. Edges. Edges create shape. Shape creates polarity. Men who remove their edges to be liked become shapeless. And shapeless things don't create desire. One of the fastest ways men lose attraction is over-explaining. They explain why they said something, why they didn't. Text. Why they felt a certain way. Explanation seeks absolution. It communicates. I need you to understand me so I can feel okay. Strong men don't require constant understanding. They act congruently and let meaning emerge. Over-explanation collapses mystery into justification, and desire hates justification. Men treat tension like a malfunction, something to fix, resolve, smooth over. But tension is the signal attraction is alive. Sexual polarity exists inside tension. When a woman pulls back slightly, the instinct is to chase clarity. But clarity removes tension, and removing tension removes desire. The man who can stay relaxed in tension becomes irresistible, not because he's indifferent, but because he's unafraid. Women unconsciously test one thing early. Can this man stay grounded when I don't reassure him? They pull back. They delay replies. They become less expressive, not maliciously, instinctively. A man who panics fails the test. A man who stays centered passes without knowing it happened. Because attraction doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from being choice-worthy. Chasing says, I believe if I stop moving, I lose. That belief is felt. Men chase when they don't trust their own value to hold interest. The irony? Chasing confirms the very insecurity they're trying to escape. Power in attraction is the ability to pause, to wait, to breathe, to let space do the work. Space is not distance. It's respect. Men fear space because they confuse it with abandonment. But space isn't absence, it's confidence. It says, I trust what exists between us without constant reinforcement. That trust is attractive. Need is loud. Confidence is quiet. And quiet carries weight. Self-contained men. Don't narrate anxiety. Don't demand reassurance. Don't rush emotional milestones. don't center the relationship as their identity. They enjoy connection without needing it to define them. They don't threaten withdrawal. They simply don't cling, and that non-attachment creates gravity. By the time a woman says, "I don't feel the same anymore," attraction has been gone for months. It died. When you needed reassurance, you abandoned your edge. You over-explained, you tried to secure instead of lead. The breakup is paperwork. The loss already happened. Stop asking, "How do I make her want me?" Start asking, "Would I want me if I were her?" Not as a moral question, as an energetic one. Would you feel tension, curiosity, respect, or obligation? They understand the theory. They nod along. But emotionally, they still reach for reassurance, seek certainty. Fear loss more than loss of desire. Until that flips, attraction won't return. Because desire responds to strength in uncertainty. The point of all. This isn't about withholding. It's about holding yourself. It's not about acting distant. It's about being grounded. It's not about control. It's about self-possession. And most men have never been taught that. If this is exposed habits you didn't realize were sabotaging attraction, don't brush it off. Comment 1. Behavior you recognized in yourself. Over-explaining, chasing, reassurance-seeking, emotional dumping, whatever it is. Not to confess, to confront. Because awareness is the first place power comes back. By the time attraction fades, most men are already too late. Not because they didn't care, not because they didn't try, but because they tried in the wrong direction. They tried to restore attraction with more communication, more reassurance, more effort, more emotional exposure. And attraction doesn't respond to more. It responds to strength under pressure. This is the part no one wants to hear. Once attraction starts dying, you don't revive it by proving anything. You revive it by removing weight. There's a moment every man recognizes. Replies slow down. Initiation drops. Her energy feels distant but not gone. This is where men panic. They sense loss coming, and they try to outrun it. They text more to reconnect. Ask what's wrong. Try to talk things through. Overfunction emotionally, what they're really doing is broadcasting fear, and fear accelerates the very outcome they're trying to prevent. Attraction doesn't disappear because of one mistake. It disappears when a man shows he cannot hold uncertainty. Men love problem solving, so when attraction fades, they treat it like a repair job. What they miss is this. Attraction isn't broken. It's overloaded. Too much explanation, too much presence, too much emotional dependence. Trying to fix it adds more weight to a structure that's already collapsing. The solution isn't effort, it's subtraction. When attraction fades, the most powerful move a man can make is this. He stabilizes himself, not the relationship. He stops chasing clarity. He stops monitoring mood. He stops explaining, not as a tactic, as a correction. He reclaims emotional center. This often looks like reduced but calm communication. No emotional interrogation, no reassurance-seeking, no pressure for outcomes. To her nervous system, this registers as relief. Pressure leaves, space returns. Polarity has room to breathe again. Detachment isn't coldness, it's non-need. Coldness pushes away. Non-need invites curiosity. The man who detaches doesn't punish. He doesn't withdraw to manipulate. He simply stops leaning. And when the leaning stops, balance can return. Rebuilding attraction starts internally, not externally. Men think rebuilding attraction means changing behavior towards her. Wrong. It means changing relationship towards yourself. You rebuild attraction by reinvesting in your life. restoring emotional self-respect, becoming unavailable to your own neediness. When your life feels full again, attraction often reappears without effort. Because attraction isn't something you do, it's something you are when you're grounded. Men suggest relationship talks when they feel loss approaching. They want clarity, reassurance, definition. But these conversations rarely restore attraction. They expose imbalance. The man wants security. The woman wants space. Naming the imbalance doesn't fix it. It highlights it. Attraction doesn't recover in negotiation. It recovers in polarity. The hardest truth. Sometimes you must let it die. This is the part most advice avoids. Sometimes attraction doesn't come back, not because you failed, but because it was already exhausted. The strongest move then is not to cling, it's to let go cleanly. Men who can walk away without bitterness retain power. Men who beg lose it permanently. Walking away doesn't guarantee attraction returns, but staying needy guarantees it won't. Walking away signals something profound. I value myself enough to survive loss. That signal is rare, and rarity is attractive. Even if she never comes back, you rebuild something more important. Your internal hierarchy. You stop centering women as emotional anchors. You become self-contained again, and future attraction changes completely. The difference between hope and expectation. Men often confuse these two. Hope says, something might grow. Expectation says, something must happen. Expectation creates pressure. Hope allows space. Strong men operate from hope, not expectation. They enjoy connection. They don't demand outcomes. This alone restores polarity more than any tactic. From the outside, grounded masculinity looks simple. From the inside, it's hard. It feels like sitting with uncertainty without reaching, feeling desire without acting compulsively, letting silence exist, trusting yourself more than outcomes. Most men have never practiced this. They've been trained to react. Attraction favors men who can pause. Emotional loudness doesn't mean yelling. It means emotional noise, constant processing, constant checking, constant clarifying. It floods the emotional space. When men quiet that noise, women often lean back in, not consciously, but instinctively. Because attraction needs room. Men fear that holding back means becoming distant or cruel. It doesn't. Edge isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. You can be warm without being porous, present without being dependent, interested without being attached. That balance is magnetic. The moment attraction starts to return is usually subtle. She initiates again. Her tone softens. Curiosity reappears. And this is where men often blow it. They overcorrect. They flood. They celebrate too loudly. Strength is staying steady even when rewarded. Attraction stays when you don't chase its return. Attraction reflects your internal state. If you are centered, it grows. If you are needy, it collapses. If you are grounded, it stabilizes. You don't control attraction. You embody conditions where it can exist. That's the real power. Not manipulation. Not tactics. Not pretending not to care. But emotional self-sovereignty. The ability to want without needing. To connect without collapsing. To risk loss without fear. That's what most men were never taught. The final question. Every man must answer it. How do I keep her? But who am I when she might leave? That answer determines everything. If this series has shifted how you see attraction, polarity, and your own patterns, don't stop here. Subscribe and stay with this work. Not because you need motivation, but because once you see these dynamics clearly, you can't unsee them. And the next step is learning how to live them without swinging into coldness or control. Attraction isn't a trick, it's a byproduct of strength. And strength is built, not learned once. We're not done yet.